All right, so we are in section 3, which will focus on identifying trends, patterns, duplicates, and outliers with Discover. Discover is a function in IDEA that allows you to analyze the data and in a very intelligent way. So it's its own dashboard that creates analytics of the data using statistics and typical graphs that you want to get as an auditor. So this is very, very useful. And the way to create this or generate these statistical dashboards will be by just activating the account or the database that you want to analyze. And then you go to the Analysis tab, pressing on the Discover button. And then it's going to run it's going to take a few seconds to activate. Once it is activated, it will create a dashboard. So the dashboard has been activated. It took a little, like 15 seconds to activate. And it looks like this. Now, this is a very simple yet effective way of displaying the data. For example, it will give you 0 items based on the amount, which was the control field that I use. So that accounts payable box with 0 items can be drilled down by double clicking on that, and that will give me the actual underlying data that is represented by those statistics, right? So in this case, it showed that two of the invoice, two of those accounts payable records had a 0 amount. They still had a check number. So it's possible that they were printed and voided. We need to investigate, right? So that would automatically give me the ability to focus on those things. We have an accounts payable record that has no unique identifier for the payee. So this truck stop payee should have a supplier number, because that's normally what happens when you go through the internal processes of creating a vendor within a system. As we all recall, you need an ID to be represented in the universe of that accounting information system. So that means that we need to investigate that. You have accounts payable records that have the payee missing. And so that would make me worry about where this particular amount that was paid on April actually actually came from, and who did we pay the check to? And that's a big amount. So it definitely needs to be investigated. So as you can see, I can look at the net value, the average amount, and these, by the way, give me the ability to look at the properties. How do you calculate that supplier number? And I can look at other statistics, not just for that particular field, but any other field that I may want to change to. I may be more interested in invoice dates, for example. Now, these other graphs are very simple yet effective ways of graphing the count of records by the amount. I could change that, right? I could always change that into amounts if I wanted to, and then we'll do a little bit of that conversion in a minute. If you recall other visualization software that we cover, such as Tableau, this is something that helps you drill down, and we'll get to the analysis of that in a minute. So let's try to modify some of those statistical displays or panels. Let's go into the accounts payable and switch this by going into the properties, and instead of having the amount field in there, let's switch that into invoice, and that automatically is going to tell me which items are blank and which items are duplicated or and how many records are unique. So in this case, I have 999 unique invoices, meaning that I am not duplicating any of those, and that's very, very valuable. Let me save that. And so that should replace it right here in a minute. And so that should have the 0, although I lost that for whatever reason. Let me make sure that I bring it over. So I just went back pressed on the number of duplicates, and then I press save, and then that should generate it. It took a little bit of time to get there. I could also try to modify some of the chart panels. If I were to look at the count of records by amount, that's stratified. So again, this is the count of records by amount. I could click on this particular, by the way, this is the properties. This is going to be a copy to clipboard, which you would use to bring into a report. This would give you an actual grid versus chart view, and you can toggle that to see the grid. And if you were doing a distribution table of your stratified report, and then this would maximize or restore the size to the panel size. Now, if you go to the count of records by inventory date, then you will also see that you have properties that may be able to change some of the stuff. For example, here you can look at the properties, and you should be able to bring down this to a group menu, and you should be able to modify that. I'm sorry. All right, so in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to change the properties of this particular graph from identifying the number of records per inventory date. We will switch this to group by the authorization. So let's see who's authorizing what, and let's do an actual sum of the amounts that are being authorized by each particular employee, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 14 employees. Let's make sure that we can display who's authorizing the most, and it's normal. Maybe HMB has the actual authority to be authorizing such transactions. So anyway, you can see you can switch this around, make things different. So for now, let's just go ahead and save this particular dashboard by clicking on the Save menu. And I'm gonna save this visualization with obviously your last name, first name, and then I'm gonna call it AP dashboard. And notice that it has an I- menu to it. And when I save it and then go back to my home, I can always go back and see this is the one that I'm looking at, and I can reuse it, modify it, or trash it in the future. So now that that is done, I can close this and go back, and I can look at my library, and I'll have my visualizations there to look at if I needed to look at them as well. Before I keep going, let me make sure that we print screen our changes so that we can bring them over. And I don't know why this is different. Let me bring it again. That is should be the sum of author. Okay, this should be the right one. I want to print screen that particular field, and I will bring it into my 3D. Now that it's done, then I can go to the next section, which is 3E. And by the way, once you refresh your database, this visualization, let me make sure I save it, and it's saved under that I dash. Place it, bring it home, close it, and that should be stored in my current project library if I were looking at it at this point. All right, thank you.